Hi everyone and welcome to Easy Does It Digital. Today we're going to take a look inside a computer and uncover the basics of what makes it work. In particular, this is going to be the easy guide to hardware. Now don't worry, it's all going to be simple and easy to understand. By the time of this video, hopefully you'll know more about what's inside that mysterious box on your desk or under your desk or even on your lap if you're using a laptop. So let's go ahead and get started. All right, so let's start with what is a computer made of. Typically speaking, at their most basic level, computers are made of hardware and software. And the hardware would mean the physical parts that you can see and touch. Software would be the programs and instructions that tell the hardware what to do. Now today we're focusing just on the hardware, and we'll cover software hopefully in some future videos. But for now, what you can think of, the way that a computer works, is that you can think of it like a car. Hardware would be the engine, the wheels, the seats, and all of that, while you as the driver would be the software. So that's a basic analogy. Let's look at the simple big picture. A computer takes input, processes it, and provides output in whatever format you have chosen. Now, this can be any type of format. It might be that you type something on a keyboard and it shows up on a screen. Or let's take a look at this. So we see the overall picture of how it works. But let's think about printing a document. First, you click the print icon. Then the system processes the command and it produces an output in the form of paper coming out of your printer with whatever information you've chosen to print. Now let's meet the brain, or the CPU. CPU is short for Central Processing Unit, and it is frequently considered to be the brain of a computer system. It's responsible for processing instructions. Every click, scroll, and program runs through the CPU. Some popular brands include Intel and AMD, and there are others, but those are two very popular and commercially available brands. And this is what a CPU looks like. It's usually a square chip, and you can think of it like the chef in the kitchen. Everything has to go through it first in order to get cooked. Now, in order to do all of that processing, it needs some help. So it relies on the short-term memory of the computer, or RAM. RAM stands for Random Access Memory, and like I said, it is short-term memory only. It's where information is stored temporarily while the computer is working on it. So while you have a photo open viewing it, or while you have a web browser open looking things up on Google. That's where random access memory comes in. You can think of it as a temporary workspace. And this is what most RAM typically looks like. They're long, narrow boards with chips on them. And some computers have removable chips that can be upgraded. So you can upgrade the memory of your computer. But some computers, particularly certain types of laptops, have the RAM actually soldered onto the main board, which we'll get to in a little bit, but that would not be upgradable. So again, just to reiterate, this is short-term memory only. Temporary workspace. Think of it as if it were sticky notes. This is not where things are stored for the long haul. That would be long-term memory, or in the computer world, it's called storage. There are two common types of storage. You have traditional HDD, or hard disk drive, and it typically looks about like this. There are different sizes of these, but they all pretty much look the same. It does have moving parts and a spinner that spins around disk. There's an arm with a needle on the end, very similar to an old-fashioned record player, but on a much higher technical level. Then you have SSD, which is newer technology. It stands for solid state drive, and this is about what it looks like. Now, this is actually enhanced or enlarged so that you can see more detail. These are actually quite small in reality, but I made it bigger so you could see. The SSD does not have moving parts. The chips are all built into one configuration, and for this reason, it's considered less susceptible to damage than the hard disk drive because there are no moving parts. There are some other differences as well. Most notably is that while the hard disk drive version can typically hold larger amounts of data, it is slower, whereas the solid state drives typically hold less, but they're much faster. And another difference is that because HDD technology has been around for quite a while, they're a little less expensive. And because SSD is fairly new, it is a little more expensive. But fortunately, because the chip technology is always advancing, the price of SSD is coming down significantly, resulting in increased capacities for your computer. So that's good. Now, how do we connect it all together? The CPU and the RAM and the storage, that would be through the use of the motherboard. Now, this is a typical motherboard. Generally speaking, it's rectangular in nature, and it is going to be roughly the same shape and size as the dimensions of your computer, whether it's a tower, a box, or whether it's a laptop. You look at the length and the width, and there's going to be a board that pretty much spans that entire size. And on the motherboard, you will have connections to all the parts, the CPU, RAM, storage, and other things as well, so they can work together. You can think of it like the nervous system. If the CPU is the brain, it has to have ways to connect to the rest of the quote-unquote body. And so that's what the motherboard is for. And it connects all the parts so they can work together. And it's really the central hub where everything happens. Everything that the computer uses, whether it's inside the box or connected from outside, is in some way connected to the motherboard. So what exactly is going on in there? Really, everything that you do with a computer is reduced to electricity. So it gets very hot in there, and that's why we need fans and cooling systems. This is a typical motherboard with all the attachments, and as a general rule, it generates a lot of heat, especially when working hard, doing things like processing videos. And that's where these fans and cooling systems come in. They keep everything at a safe temperature so your computer does not overheat. And that's what one typical fan looks like. So where does all this electricity come from? That would be through the power supply, which is the energy source for your computer. Now, your computer does not need as much electricity as what comes out of the outlet in the wall. So the power supply takes the energy from the wall outlet and converts it into the form that your computer can use. Without it, nothing would be able to turn on. And this is a picture of a typical power supply. They're not really pretty elements, but they're very useful, obviously, and they can be in different shapes and sizes, and there are different types of cooling elements, but we're keeping it simple today. So that's a typical power supply. Now, you may have also wondered how your computer takes electricity and creates images on the screen or brings them to life, and that's the job of the graphics card. It's especially important for gamers or anyone who works with photos and videos, but we need them for even just processing data in a Word file. This is what one example of a graphics card looks like. Now, this is a relatively fancy one. It's got several places where you can plug in different types of display devices, but what it does is it takes the data, or in this case electricity, and it converts it to images on a screen. Now, peripherals are extra things. These are the devices that are not in it but around it when it comes to your computer. You've probably heard the term peripheral vision, and you know that that's the vision on the side, or what you can see out of the corner of your eyes. So peripheral devices are the extra parts that you use with your computer. And this would be a typical computer setup. But the peripherals in this case would be the mouse, the keyboard, the printer, and even things like webcams. They're anything that are not a part of the box itself, but that connect to it from outside. that are essential for getting things done by adding functionality to the machine overall. Now let's wrap it all up. Again, this is an overview of hardware, which are the physical components you can see and touch. Some hardware elements are built into the box, some connect to it outside the machine. But all of them, whether it is the CPU, the RAM, storage, peripherals, all of them play unique roles in making your computer work. And I do hope this helps demystify what's inside the box and how it all works together, because I know it can seem really confusing if you don't know what all those parts are, but now you do. If this video has been helpful to you, please like and subscribe so you'll be notified when the next video lesson drops for you from Easy Does It Digital.